Someone wronged you, maybe it was last week, maybe it was years ago. And even now, even when you are in the middle of doing something completely unrelated, your mind drifts back to it. You replay it. You imagine what you should have said. You imagine what you could still do. You want them to feel what you felt. You want them to know what they did. You want payback. That feeling is not a flaw, it is not weakness. It is one of the most ancient, deeply wired drives in the entire human nervous system, and the science behind it is far stranger than you think. Revenge is not about justice. It is not about making things right. Your brain has a different reason entirely for keeping that fire burning, and once you understand it, you will never think about anger the same way again. Start with what happens inside your brain the moment someone wrongs you. Neuroscientist Dominique de Quervain at the University of Zurich ran a study in 2004 that changed how scientists think about punishment. He put participants in a game where one player could cooperate or cheat. When the other player cheated, the betrayed participant was given the option to punish them, but at a personal cost. They had to spend their own resources to make it happen. And here is what is remarkable: people paid to punish. Even when it cost them something real, they chose revenge. And while they did, de Quervain's team was watching their brains in a PET scanner. The caudate nucleus lit up. That is the same region involved in reward, anticipation, and pleasure. Your brain treats revenge like food, like sex, like winning. The anticipation of payback activates the same circuitry as any other deeply satisfying reward. That is why you cannot stop thinking about it. The brain locks onto unresolved wrongs the same way it locks onto hunger. It is not rumination for the sake of it. It is your neural architecture screaming that something is unfinished. But here is where it gets complicated. Psychologist Kevin Carlsmith studied what actually happens after people get their revenge. In 2008, he and his colleagues designed a study where participants were cheated in a group investment game. Some were given the chance to punish the cheater. Others were not. Before they acted, the participants who had the option to punish predicted they would feel much better afterward. They expected relief, closure, satisfaction. What they got was the opposite. The people who punished the cheater felt worse. Not better, worse. They kept thinking about the cheating. They kept replaying the betrayal. Meanwhile, the people who never got to punish at all had already started to move on. Carlsmith called it the agent problem. When you get your revenge, you become an active participant in the event again. You pull yourself back into the story. Instead of the wound healing over, you rip it back open, and this time you are holding the knife. This is the cruelest trick your brain ever plays on you. It promises relief and delivers obsession. So why did this drive evolve in the first place? Why would natural selection build a system that feels rewarding but causes suffering? To understand that, you have to go back a long time, not centuries, thousands of years, tens of thousands. Picture a small group, 30 people, maybe 40, moving across open terrain. Everyone depends on everyone else. You hunt together, you sleep in proximity, you share what you find. In a group that small, one defector, one person who takes without contributing, who cheats, who steals, is not just an annoyance. They are an existential threat to the whole group's survival. Every free rider who goes unpunished sends a signal to every other member: cheating works here, do it. And once that signal spreads, cooperation collapses, the group falls apart, everyone dies. Punishment then was not personal, it was a social immune system. It was the mechanism that kept defection from spreading. And the individuals who felt the strongest pull toward punishing cheaters, even at personal cost, were the ones whose groups survived. Their descendants are you. Anthropologist Christopher Boehm spent decades studying hunter-gatherer societies across the globe. He found a consistent pattern: nearly every surviving forager group had developed systems of punishment, ostracism, and reputational enforcement to keep powerful individuals from dominating others. Revenge was not chaos, it was structure, it was the original law. But that was then. The architecture remains, firing in a world your ancestors could not have imagined. Think about what your brain does not understand. It does not understand scale. It does not understand that the colleague who embarrassed you in a meeting is not a genuine threat to your survival. It does not understand that the stranger who cut you off in traffic is not a rival challenging your status in a group you depend on. Your threat detection system treats a social slight the same way it treats a physical attack, because for most of human history, those two things were functionally the same. Being humiliated in front of the group meant losing status. Losing status meant losing access to resources, mates, and protection. A damaged reputation in a small forager band was not just embarrassing, it could get you killed. So when someone wrongs you today, your brain escalates. It floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. It narrows your focus. It makes the offense feel larger, more threatening, more urgent than it logically is. Psychologist Roy Baumeister calls this the magnitude gap. The person who wronged you has already moved on. They have minimized what they did in their own mind, rationalized it, or forgotten it entirely. but you have magnified it. You have stored it in high resolution with full emotional color. You and the person who hurt you are living in completely different versions of the same event, and neither of you is lying. Your brains are just doing different jobs. That asymmetry is what makes revenge feel so justified from the inside. You are not reacting to what happened. You are reacting to what your brain made of what happened. And your brain made it enormous. Here is the part that rarely gets talked about. Revenge fantasies are not just emotionally compelling, they are cognitively useful up to a point. Psychologist Michael McCullough at the University of Miami has spent years studying forgiveness and revenge, and he argues that rumination about revenge is not simply irrational. It serves a function. It keeps you mobilized. It keeps the threat salient. In an ancestral environment where the person who wronged you was someone you would see again tomorrow, staying alert to the possibility of future harm made sense. Letting go too fast could get you hurt again. The problem is that the system has no off switch calibrated for modern life. Your brain cannot automatically distinguish between a threat that is still present and one that passed 6 months ago. It keeps running the revenge simulation on a loop, burning through your mental energy, keeping you wired to a wound that no longer needs defending. What do you do with that? Forgiveness is not what you think it is. It is not saying what happened was acceptable. It is not excusing the person who hurt you. McCullough's research makes this clear. Forgiveness is a biological process of withdrawing the mobilization response. It is your nervous system finally deciding that the threat is resolved, not because it was never real, but because the cost of staying at war is higher than the cost of standing down. Cultures that developed forgiveness practices did not do it because they were morally superior. They did it because the alternative, persistent cycles of retaliation was destroying them. There is a term in economics for what revenge often becomes: a second-order cost. You already paid the first cost when you were wronged. Every hour you spend in the revenge loop is a second cost you are paying to the same person out of your own resources for free. They wronged you once. Rumination lets them do it every day. Think back to that feeling you started with, that slow burn, that fantasy of seeing them face what they did, that need for them to know. That is not weakness. That is millions of years of evolutionary engineering doing exactly what it was built to do. You were built for a world where that drive protected you and everyone around you. In that world it worked. But you are here now, and the question your ancient brain never learned to ask is this one: who is really paying for the revenge you have not taken yet? The moment someone wronged you, the cost started. The only question left is when you decide to stop paying it.